Need some coffee.
Yeah, I need some coffee, Mildred.
Easy on the creamer. I like to put the cream in first, and then I
Yeah.
put the coffee in because I like to mix it up. It's like a natural mixing of it.
Hey, I made a mistake one time of telling a girl I was going out with years ago while I was putting hot sauce on. I said, well, it kills the taste of the food. And she goes, well, thanks a lot. And I was like, well, I didn't mean it like that. It enhances the taste of the food.
I mean, it enhances your delicious food.
Yes, it does. All right.
We love it so much.
We do. Got a great one today. Brendan Martin, our executive producer down in the horse capital of the world, Kentucky, is just a fact. Where do you buy your horses? Probably Marion County.
And by the way, to all those people in the storms at University of Kentucky yesterday, I saw some nasties. Kid get knocked over in the wind.
Well, and they showed it on Fox and Friends this morning about 12 times. They kept rewind, the same thing. That's the media. But that was a big. Hey, it was so windy driving over the bridge last night across the Mississippi River. I felt like it was going to blow the truck off the road. And I've seen 18-wheelers up here where it gets so windy, just flipped over right in front of you. It's like, wear your seatbelt. All right, got Dave Tompkins, Low Country, South Carolina, one of our savant. Man, this is going to be a lot of fun talking Final Four. Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. And Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville. Smash the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner and allow notifications on your Android device or your iPhone, okay?
And if you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and give us a like. You'll get notifications as well. And every time you hold up two fingers, you get these fun reactions on your computer there.
Yeah. Yeah, and then also make sure that you go to our website, sidelines.live. That's where all of our great sponsors like Rumble Boxing and ECS House Industries and the great folks that support this show, Gateway Tire and Service Center, Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, The Vitamin Shop, Tom Martin's Body Shop, our friends like Gaddis Home Innovations, Clay's Smoked Tuna. By the way, I went there yesterday. The smoked salmon comes out next week. So a lot going on. Let's get cranked up, get pen and paper handy, and we're going to inform you about how the Final Four might shake out this weekend.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Dave Tompkins is with us right now in the office there. You in Beaufort this morning?
Yes, sir. Reporting live from Beaufort. I too need some coffee with creamer.
Yeah, yes. Mildred, we need 3 cups of coffee. Mildred! Paul!
I want cream in that coffee, Mildred!
Paul! Well, I thought Hey, Dave, Brendan and I were, I'm trying to find it, but the Yukon fight song. How cool. Look, Rodney Orr asked me yesterday on the show, it was Rodney and Yancey Porter, Rodney, Tyler Insider, about how do I feel as an Auburn man, Alabama making the Final Four. And I just said, hey, look, I love my school and I absolutely love it. I'm happy for my friends because I've got a lot of Alabama friends. And I know when Auburn went to the Final Four, they were like very supportive and pulling for me. You can't base a fan base on some lunatic you see calling in every day from the nervous hospital on a TV show. That's not, I doubt any of those people. And by the way, I got a 12-pack of them yesterday, a steamer half case of crystals. Had to travel all over the Mid-South yesterday. But those people aren't season ticket holders and investors in the university. But, damn right, it's great for the state of Alabama. And Auburn, they got nobody to blame but themselves. I mean, you can't blame officials, can't blame anybody. Alabama has earned this. Nate Oates, you talked about him as a systems coach. And damn, they went after North Carolina. And I know you had to pull for the Tar Heels because of your wife. But They ran with them. That was a track meet. That was like an awesome series of 4x4s and 800 meters, which is the most grueling and painful race in all of track and field, I think. But that was powerful stuff. And Nate Oates, why would he even look? You can talk about these other jobs. If you've got the NIL money, which Bama does, you can go get you players that you need. He ain't going anywhere. He's got them to the Final Four, and now you're playing UConn, and it's a perfect setup because everybody's telling you that you can't do it. And you know what? Treat the word impossible as motivation. That's how I look at it.
I 1,000% agree, and I was wrong about Nate Oates. I'm long suffering. I go back to Anthony Murray and T.R. Dunn and C.M. Newton way back in the mid '70s.
T.R. Dunn. That's what they used to say when he was the Nugget. And
T.R. Dunn.
Yeah. Every time he scored at McNichols Arena, you hear this T.R. Dunn.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. He was
all
huge
the years
nugget.
in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and the 00s, Alabama was so much basketball talent.
Yeah.
And being able to recruit in Birmingham and Memphis and have these great teams that could never get past the Sweet 16. Newton and Whip Sanderson and Hobbs. And it was just so frustrating. And I finally just almost gave up. And boy, have I been proven wrong in this particular run. And I think you look at Nate Oates' record, he's taking the Sweet 16 every year except the year there wasn't the tournament because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
They were the number 1 overall seed last year, lost to San Diego State. This year they make the Final Four. And, I mean, he's going to stay put, I think. I mean, why wouldn't you? There's so much assets there that you have the NIL money, you have the recruiting pool, you have Alabama becoming a basketball state. You have, your in-state rival is they've been to a Final Four in 2019. They were supposed to make a run this year. When you look at the last 5 years, that's 2 Final Fours, 1 from Auburn, 1 from Alabama. I think the only other states that can claim that are Connecticut with UConn's 2 runs and North Carolina with Duke going 1 year and North Carolina going another year. So I mean, Kansas can't make that claim. California can't make that claim. Alabama can. Kentucky cannot. I mean, that's some pretty lofty stuff.
Yeah, it is. And the state, I said a few weeks ago on the show, you were on with us, Alabama, the state is becoming a lot like Indiana was. But, Indiana, not anymore. You got Purdue is so dominant, and Indiana is just kind of an afterthought. That's kind of hard for us to say that growing up, watching Indiana as we all did. But I think that's where we are. Kevin Skarbinski was on the show Monday, the only basketball Hall of Fame writer ever from Alabama. The pride they take in having 9 schools in the state of Alabama that have been to the tournament. And this year, you had 4 go out there, all go out west. And you know what? Samford, are they going to be the Gonzaga of the South? You got the Jesuits out in Washington. You've got the Baptist on Lakeshore Drive. And I see a lot of momentum.
I mean, right now, I would say that, as a mid-major, UAB is – they're a B plus, a mid-major, perhaps trending toward an A minus mid-major, and Samford is a A minus mid-major trending toward an A plus.
Yeah,
and I mean, and they have pound for pound, I think the best basketball coach in not named Danny Hurley in Bucky McMillan.
Yeah. All right, let's look at this matchup: Alabama and UConn. Danny Hurley, part of the Hurley bloodline. Didn't the dad coach at DeMatha?
No, St.
Anthony's.
St. Anthony's, yeah.
St. Anthony's, that's right. You know who St. Anthony is, don't you? Audrey, come here. If you ever lose anything, you what's the prayer to St. Anthony, Audrey? It's if you ever lose anything, you say this prayer: St. Anthony, bring it to me. I mean, things will appear. It's unbelievable. That's the magic behind the Hurleys. But Dan Hurley, look at UConn. Since 1998, and Kevin Skarbinski provided these stats to us, UConn has won 5 national championships. That is 2 more than Duke, 2 more than North Carolina, 3 more than Kansas, and 4 more than Kentucky in that time span.
And 5 more than UCLA.
Yes. And you know what's crazy is that Kentucky was so dominant for so long in basketball in the SEC, but they haven't responded since 2014 when Mike Slive told everybody, ramp up your basketball. We've got the SEC network, and we cannot put Salisbury steaks on the table at Gordon Ramsay's steakhouse. Okay. And they have not responded, have they?
Well, I mean, let's just say that both the men's and women's teams from UConn win, which is entirely plausible.
Possible.
I mean, obviously the men's team is a shoe-in favorite to win, but watch out, UConn against Alabama. But that would be 12 national championships for the women and 6 for the men. I mean, that's extraordinary. I mean, that is just absolutely extraordinary what they're doing in Storrs, Connecticut.
Well, Gino Ariana, 11 national championships. Pat Summitt, 8 at Tennessee. Well, you think about this. Pat Summitt's dominance at Tennessee was at a time when really you had Auburn with Joe Champy was really good. Georgia and Ole Miss were, with Van Chancellor at Ole Miss, Andy Landers at Georgia with the women. Philip Marshall pointed this out yesterday in one of his columns in Auburn Undercover. And since everybody, South Carolina and LSU are here, Tennessee's way behind them. They got rid of Kelly Harper a couple of days ago. And you know what? The bottom line is some of these programs like Kentucky in men's basketball are finding out that when other schools in the conference get serious and make a commitment, they're not as dominant as they think they are.
Yeah, that is so true. One thing I'm really curious about for Friday night and Saturday night, UConn is in the second game slot both nights, and what's going to have the higher television rating? Will it be the men Saturday night, or will it be Caitlin Friday night? I got a hunch it's going to be the latter.
All right, you have been. Hey, Brendan, Dave has been all over this. Caitlin Clark, what she's done, chronicling her career. That women's game Monday night was 12.5 million viewers. That is more than I think some of the World Series matchups last year.
Yeah, and I think she's a cultural phenomenon, and I totally buy into people like let's don't get ahead of ourselves as apples and oranges. You can't compare Mia Hamm to Lionel Messi or Annika Sorenstam to Tiger Woods, just as you can't compare Caitlin to, I think she's a combination of Steph Curry and John Stockton. But I think she's a phenomenon because in terms of just skills, she has as complete a package of offensive skills as anyone I've ever seen in terms of shooting, long range, shooting in traffic, ball handling, passing. I think she's a better passer than she is a 3-point shooter. Yeah. Of course she couldn't survive in the men's game, but that's not what's important. What's important is just how fun she is to watch.
I don't like that comparison, by the way. And I think I get away from that with women's sports, maybe because I got a daughter now that's in sports and whatever, but you got to learn to appreciate the women's game a little bit differently, the finesse and the style and the way they play. I think physically, obviously you're going to have a huge difference, but like end of the day, like they play a different style of game. And I think if you took certain females and certain males or whatever, and then made one team, I think you would have a more of a balanced and a powerful team. So I really that comparison doesn't ever sit with me very well.
Great point, Brendan. And golf's my main sport, and this adage has been true for a long time. That if you're a male golfer and you want to get better, go to every LPGA Tour event and just watch the women play. Yeah. Because they put the ball in the fairway. They hit their second shot in the middle of the green. They're playing the way. They're playing golf the way it should be played. Yeah. They're not going to have to be able to hit the ball 340 yards like Rory McIlroy. The best players hit it, 250, 260, and that's what a great male amateur, should aspire to do. So, Brendan, you're absolutely right.
Look, I actually caddied professionally at one point in my life, and when you go out and you carry a professional bag, and I've done female and male bags when I worked at Castle Pines Golf Club in Colorado, but they had the international golf tournament there. But when you caddy for a professional, it's a whole different level because you're giving yardages and things to like front edge, back edge, or stuff that you're not going to give to an amateur or to anybody else because they hit it in such a precise way that they're looking for that blade of grass at 162 with a 180, with a 158 carry. Then they're going to spin it back and all of that stuff. And the whole point of this is that watching two professionals that play like that from 150 in, I mean, I've never seen anybody that hit it so pure and perfect and consistently than seeing a professional female golfer do it. They are so dangerous from 150 in and that's where you score. And it's this, their swing is so pure and perfect. And I try to explain that's how a lot of female sports are. They do some of the finesse things that are so much better.
Well, I'm thinking back 15 years ago when Annika was in her prime, and got to see her play, and to watch her on the range. First off, she would practice for literally 12 hours, and she was doing 1,000 push-ups and 1,000 sit-ups a day and squats and everything. But she would practice on the range for hours on end, and every shot was exactly the same, and her divot pattern and everything. It's like, wow, she's at that time. I thought she had come as close to perfection as you can get. There's no perfection in golf, but boy, she came damn close.
Well, and watch, I've got a daughter, and now we got two with Mallory. But when my daughter Hallie was a kid swimming, good Lord, doing the backstroke, girls versus boys when they're younger, we're trying to overpower the water, and the girls cutting through it like watching a shark or a porpoise swim. Because they know they can't just go physically dominate something against men, it's not going to happen, but they do it the right way. And when Joe Champy was at Auburn, we were so lucky he would come do his coach's show at the TV station. Just listening to him talk about the game, the strategy, the X's and O's, and you just can't appreciate it enough. And I like the comment by Buck Wade, very impressive. More people watched the Iowa game against LSU Monday night than watched 3 of the NBA finals last year. And I'll say this, they watch it because it's basketball and it's not. And here's another comment by Arlo Guthrie, one of our viewers, Kentucky running an NBA day camp, or it's daycare. I mean, look, all they're doing at Kentucky is bringing them in and saying, look what we got. All right. When everybody else is going out and getting experienced players. And again, John Calipari said it after this year's loss. Kentucky now losing 4 of the last 5 times they've been to the tournament in the first round, not even getting out of opening weekend. So you got to think, is that model broken? Well, yes, John Calipari, you make a lot of money, but don't give people lifetime contracts. Even Warren Buffett, when asked how much of your money, and he's got so much money, it's hard to keep up. It's over $40 billion. He was asked, how much money are you going to leave to your kids? Warren Buffett said, I'm going to leave them enough, but not so much that they don't want to get out of bed and go to work. You got to keep people hungry. And, the Kentucky has, and here's another one, that their ship has sailed. It's because everybody in the SEC now is ramping up their commitment to basketball. And Kentucky's not going to come down into, remember they went down to, got Kenny Skywalker years ago out of Roberta, Georgia.
Yep.
Louisville got Charles
number 34.
Charles Jones out of Scuba, Mississippi, which is on Highway 45. They also got Never Nervous Purvis Ellison out of Savannah, Georgia. That ain't happening anymore. Those guys are staying in the Deep South. It's even affected the ACC. But when you get a commitment from schools like Auburn and Alabama and all, they will starve and fast to have great athletic programs.
Alabama is now a great basketball program. Auburn is a great basketball program. Florida has long been it's returned as a great basketball program. Tennessee is a great basketball program. Kentucky, but the SEC is so strong. I think next year they'll get 8 or 9 teams in again. I think they'll fare better in tournament. But hey,
Yeah.
we didn't fare too bad. We got one to the Final Four and another to the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
And were it not for Zach Edey's best game of his life, Tennessee would be in the Final Four.
Yeah, and also he couldn't commit a foul, and nobody could get near him. There was a bubble around him,
a shroud,
a shroud, yes. The shroud of Edey, maybe the most unlikable guy on the big stage of college sports in a long
just that
time.
Smug look he has on his face the entire time. It's just smug.
He always looks angry. He's an angry man. Hey, look, the bottom line is if the longer you live in the tradition, one thing you learn about tradition is it means a lot more, and you pay a lot more attention to it when you're struggling as a program. You start going back and remember, because when you're winning at a clip like Nick Saban did at Alabama in 17 years, it's going to be sinking in. It's like a great bottle of wine down in your cellar. Okay, in the coming years, you're going to see more and more reflections. Right now, it's like Kalen DeBoer, he's going to keep it going. There'll be a learning curve, but the commitment is there at Alabama. And you mentioned Florida. Look at Todd Golden in his second year, and they go out in a 102-100 loss to the Buffaloes. But none of their starting five even started their careers at Florida. So, the Gator Collective, they'll go get players. That's where we are, and Kentucky's forgotten that Kentucky's not paying attention to everything going on around them. It's not a zero-sums game. They make facility improvements at Kentucky. Guess what? They are at Florida. They are at Ole Miss. And
Roger,
Ole Miss basketball is going to be better.
Just to correct you, it's not the Collective anymore. It's Florida Victorious.
That's it. Yeah, Florida Victorious.
The Collective is done.
But that's Freddie Weeby.
I got to tell a Pat Summitt story if I could. I see Rob's comment. Yeah, so this was I think it was like the 2010 Alabama-Tennessee football game. It was at Neyland, and I was at a really cool tailgate right at Thompson Bowling, right outside, and Bruce Pearl was there. He was the coach of Tennessee then, and we were he was being real friendly and gregarious, and we were kind of teasing about it. Who's the real coach here? He goes, well, let me tell you who the real coach is here. And he goes, so her big rival, one of her big rivals was Vivian Stringer, the coach at Rutgers. And they went up there to play at Rutgers and they lost. And so the team, the women's basketball team, they get to the tarmac and the plane's there, but there's also two buses. And Pat boarded the coaches on the plane. They flew home. The girls took the bus home all night from East Rutherford all the way to Knoxville. And then when they drove right up to Thompson Bowling, and then there were a bunch of buckets on the court, and she made all the girls run suicides until every one of them threw up. Yeah.
Hey, what do you want?
That shows you how much Pat liked to lose.
Yeah. You know what? If you've got a locker room after a loss in any sport or track meet, whatever, and you don't have a bunch of pissed off, angry people after a loss, you're not going to get better. Because apathy among fans and among student athletes is the end of it. It ain't happening. And you know what? You got to think about, and here's Buck Wade, the old Louisiana Tech games with Pat Summitt, Tennessee against Louisiana Tech. Was that Yao? Was it what was the coach that down there?
I'm forgetting the name now.
It was Kay Yao, I think, was the coach at Louisiana Tech, if I'm not mistaken. And man, Louisiana Tech had a superpower. But you look at it in anything, the longer, here it is, the second coach now to follow, Holly Warlick, and then Kelly Harper, Pat Summitt. You're now about to go on to your third coach. That's the problem. I mean, everybody is being, as great as Pat Summitt was, 8 national championships, everyone's being compared to her. While Dawn Staley, a UVA graduate, is at South Carolina. She's got a 36-0 team. Okay, yeah. You've got Kim Mulkey at LSU, and you've got coaches in this league and schools that have money to make a commitment. And look at Arkansas. Dudley Dawson is going to be on with us in just a moment. Hogville.net. Looking forward, because people are asking, what's Eric Musselman going to do? I mean, it's moments like this that remind me of why you got to go get a good workout at rumbleboxinggym.com in Midtown Memphis, 1835 Union Avenue. They're open Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. till 7 p.m., Saturdays and Sundays, 9 till noon. Check them out, rumbleboxinggym.com. 45-minute workout with 48 people, elite instructors. You can take out some frustration. Hey, you could put the Yukon emblem on a 250-pound punching bag, Dave, and go out there with the pugil sticks that they do at Paris Island and just punch the hell out of it. But proud to have Rumble Boxing as a sponsor.
I'm going to make a contrarian prediction, and I'm being intentionally contrarian. The finals Monday night will not be Yukon versus Purdue. There will be one upset in the Final Four.
Yeah.
Who is it?
I don't know.
What's your lock, dude?
I like that.
Thanks.
I would take the dogs, and I think what's the line on the UConn Alabama game? 12, and it's something like 8.5.
12.5.
North Carolina State.
12.5,
And hey, what a story North Carolina State is. If they win Saturday, that's 10 elimination games in a row. I think you have to go all the way back to there was that UConn run in 2011, and then go all the way back to Jimmy V in 1983. And the original Survive and Advance, and all the elimination games they won in the ACC tournament, and then in the Big Dance, and then beating Phi Sigma Gamma. So that is a story. The fact that they're going after Burns, their center, the NFL's interested in him now. And
DJ,
what position would he play? Would he be a tight end, or would he be a tackle, or
tackle?
Probably a tackle. That's a cool story. This Final Four, despite the big point spreads, it's juicy. There's a lot of cool storylines, I believe.
Yeah, and there are, and DJ Burns and DJ Horn for North Carolina State. And again, I was talking, listening to the play-by-play networks. I listened to the Duke and NC State broadcast on a pretty cool site I found on Safari. And the Duke guys were just whining about every call, and NC State guys were just having a ball. And their guys announced he retiring 10 games ago, and he said, I may have to stay on a little longer, but they paint the bell tower red. That's what they say when they get a big victory at NC State. But this is why we don't need to mess with this tournament. And NC State lost, I think, their last two games. They were 17 and 14. They would go on a 5-game roll. There it is. Paint the bell tower red in Raleigh, North Carolina, as the Tar Heel State is awash in Wolfpack red. That's what they were saying on the radio. And I was going, God, because it is the Tar Heel State. That's the nickname of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And they were rubbing it. They hate one another. But again, that's like putting Auburn, Georgia, and Florida, or Auburn, Georgia, and Alabama all in 15-minute radius of one another. It's like problems you have all over the world. Think about where you just put people on top of each other. So, hey, Dudley Dawson's here with us right now. Dudley, now, there's the Celtics background. We got Dave Tompkins on here, one of our savants, golf junkie over in Beaufort, South Carolina, football, basketball. Been talking a lot about, he thinks there's going to be an upset this weekend. And when asked, he goes, I don't know. I just think there's going to be one in the Final Four. But before we get to that, a lot of chatter out there. What's going on at Arkansas? Let's talk, basketball specifically. But you don't, as you say, you don't traffic in rumors. So if you say something, it's got some street credibility to it.
Well, Eric Musselman is either interviewing at USC today or not, depending on who you ask. It's quite interesting, the diametrically opposed information I'm getting from both sides. I guess the agent, the school, the coach are all doing their due diligence to put themselves in best position. But I'm telling you, because this has got out, whether he is interviewing or not, it's kind of turned a lot of the fan base off. You hate to see it because he's been such a good coach. Oh, yeah. Since he was here. That being said, he's always been a bit of a vagabond. He's never made he's never tried to hide the fact he's a Southern California guy, or that's what at least what he sees himself as. and where he will eventually end up. We just didn't know it would be right now, but we're probably going to find out today. If he gets on the plane and goes into USC, then you've got a situation where I don't see that how he gets back on the plane.
Yeah, and God, that would be a tough loss if he does that. And what is it that drove him to be this way after 4 really pretty good years, and then this year it's a meltdown? That's a shocker, and I get the Southern Cal connection, but their commitment to basketball is not better, and they can't do what they've not done what Arkansas, other than the fact if he's homesick, okay, but I wasn't allowed to I never got to come home from camp. I went to camp in the summer. Every Sunday afternoon, you had like 3 minutes to get on the phone. Hi, I'm having a great time at summer camp. We're getting 3 good meals a day. We're working out. We're canoeing. We're paddling. Having a good time. Next. I mean, that's how you dealt with it. Parents didn't let you come home. I can't believe he would leave Arkansas.
As a camp counselor, just so you know, there was no calling home for like the first 2 weeks.
Well,
write letters,
and then those letters went right in the trash.
You just got to call.
Never let them call their parents too early.
Well,
there's a lot of negotiation with my parents to allow me to go to church camp or whatever camp for a weekend. There's no such thing as a week-long or a month-long camp available for farm guys. And,
that's right.
No way. That was your camp. You had the weekend now. Now get back to work. So, but what? About it, I don't think there's anything more than going back to South Carolina and just liking new challenges and all that. There are some who said that he didn't take the criticism here well. I just don't buy that. You don't run away because a few people, get upset about one bad year. And, there are some valid criticisms. He hadn't done great, 47-42 in SEC play. But, goodness gracious, we're sitting here talking about the Final Four. That's the ultimate goal. And he went to 2 Sweet 16s, 1 Elite 8 in 3 years. And how in the world you could be upset at that? But then again, I'm not a fan. I try to sit here and be objective about things, and that sometimes makes me different, having a different opinion than the fan base.
But wasn't it 2 Elite 8s, I thought?
No, too sweet. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yes, 2 Elite 8s.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, look, growing up in Memphis, and I'm going to throw this to you, Dave, come back for a question for Dudley, but, Arkansas, they're right here. And, Eddie Sutton, Nolan Richardson, good God, they have so much rich tradition in basketball. So whoever, if he does leave, I don't know if Bucky McMillan, I don't know what it's going to be, because there's a lot of things could happen, Dave.
Well, I think, in my opinion, is amateur compared to Dudley's, but Arkansas is just a great. It has a great tradition. It's just a great basketball program. It's got a great basketball infrastructure in terms of in terms of being able to recruit both in the Midwest and in the South and locally, and a great tradition. And to me, it would be a dream job to be the Arkansas basketball coach.
Yeah, Bud Walton Arena. I don't know. Certainly, it wasn't 19,000. That thing 30 years ago was the cat's meow. It's a much rowdier crowd than Rupp Arena, Dudley.
Yeah, and here's the thing I would say is that, yes, it is a fantastic job. But in these past 2 hirings, there have been some 10 or so guys who have decided it wasn't the right thing for them. Arkansas fans are under the assumption that they can go get Chris Beard. They can go get Will Wade. They can go get, John Calipari if they want to. That's the last one obviously not going to happen, but there's a reason that those guys who are great and tremendous coaches, there's a reason that they all had to move on from their spots. And does the University of Arkansas administration want to go there? They got lucky when they fell upon Coach Musselman. He came in here and did a great job. People remember the 90s, they forget the 2000 to 2010, 2010 to 2020s. There was a real dearth of success here.
Yeah.
When you talk about getting to the level you want to be at over those
Yeah.
20 years, Musselman comes in here, gets them there. And, sometimes he is quite volatile, and that has, upset some fans. But, I mean, to me, if you want him gone, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, great point. I think, and we all kind of have, I guess, selective memory is the wrong term, but Arkansas won their national championship, I believe, in 1994, and then got to the finals against UCLA in '95. But that seems like it was only like 5 or 6 years ago. But I mean, that was what, 30 years ago. It's been a long time, and I assume that the fan base, believes that it wasn't that long ago, and has forgotten that there has been this dark ages period, and I would encourage the athletic Arkansas nation just carefully select a coach if in fact you need to.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think I'm uniquely positioned to talk about this. I've written 2 books about the history of Arkansas basketball, so I know what's happened for a long, long time. And I've been, not only was I here for, I guess it's now 43 years of it, whether it's covering it or being inside the program as a manager and graduate assistant, but also just watching basketball, coming to games, being at camps, all different things. I think I've got a unique experience there, and I just sit here and I encourage people, although I know it stupidly that I do, I encourage people to, worry a little bit about what you got, not what you might have.
Right.
Because it's there's no guarantee of success. And I mean, I think I get along with John Calipari. I think he's a great guy. But man, Arkansas would lose their mind if Arkansas had only won 1 game in the tournament, and since 2017, 2019, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Well, you're right about John Calipari. I love. I mean, he is. When he would come to see Jimmy Sexton, his agent, when I worked at Regensburg and Keegan for my 9th year when I left, and you'd see him and you talk to him in the hallway on the elevator. You can see why he's such a phenomenal recruiter. But you also feel that way about Eric Musselman, running around campus, engaging with the students and all like that. Dudley, just offhand, if he does take the Southern Cal job and go back home to Watts, where Southern Cal is, and if he does do that, okay, Arkansas, I'm just curious, if you're interviewing for the job, would he talk to someone like Warren or Whit Stevens or some of are those people involved? Because they're really good at building success. And I don't know Hunter Yurachek. You do, Hunter Yurachek. Who are 2 or 3 names that come to mind that you'd say, let's go get them? If you're just a fan over in, Hardy, Arkansas right now, waiting for the eclipse and charging $3,000 a night at your home at an Airbnb for the total eclipse of the sun or the moon or whatever it is.
Here's a little bit of a problem. A lot of the candidates that I would have tossed out there have recently taken jobs in the last 2 weeks. Dustin May, there's several other folks that come to mind. I am in a position that I am good friends with Darrell Walker. He was a basketball player here when I was a manager and graduate assistant. I've remained friends and with him for a long time. He's had, obviously a great NBA career. He was on a team with Jordan that won an NBA title. He's done a really good job with the school formerly known as ULR, now known as Little Rock. I think he would be an ideal fit here. However, I don't know, after listening to this fan base these last 2 days, if they believe he would be a logical candidate. I think he would, and I admit I'm a little biased in that because he's a friend. He was a friend before he was a coach. But, some of these names being thrown around that I just don't know, again, because I'm reticent to throw out names and reticent to throw out that this is a destination job, because I've watched these last 2 job searches and I've seen people go, Buzz Williams, I've seen people go, and you just don't know these days with the NIL, the transfer portal, in the different college situations, which coaches are going to say, okay, I got a pretty good deal here. I got a lot of NIL money. I'm working the transfer portal. I got a lot of high school kids that can still do it that way. It's tough for me, much tougher for me than these last 2 searches, to know who is going to be legitimately interested and why, beyond the facilities, the fan base, and all that they would make the move. It's just not as easy as it used to be to say, okay, I'm going to pin that guy down. But there's obviously a lot of great coaches. You start with the 68 that made the tournament this year, and you start going down that list. And I'm sure that Hunter Yurchek, who's a very good athletic director, knows what he's doing. And I don't know about the video out last week of him and Muss on the Muss bus. Maybe we'll find out some more about that. Maybe that was a calculated move, but it didn't seem to please the other side of the aisle there. I just I think he probably has a short list, and these high political situations, which is what they are, even though they're sports.
Yeah,
you're playing chicken. So you've got a list if you're playing chicken.
Yeah, you're right, Dave Tompkins. Just thinking about this. I see Buck Wade. I wish Mitt Cronin would leave UCLA for a place like Arkansas, and he was at Cincinnati before he went to UCLA. What about that one? Because again, money is not going to be a problem at Arkansas, you think, but if you don't get the right person, the big money people probably aren't going to back them anyway, are they?
The thing I don't understand is, why would you go to USC at this point? I mean, there's not much of a basketball tradition there. I get Bronny James and LeBron, but they've always been the stepchild to UCLA. They're moving to the Big Ten. Let the football team be the sacrificial lamb in this move, and how it plays out. USC is a potentially a good place to go in 2 or 3 years, but I don't think right now. So that's been the big question on my mind.
Yeah, and Bronny has announced he's going to get in the transfer portal, so he's not even going to be there. So you're not going to have LeBron showing up and being able to recruit and all those things. Right. You just wonder, and I'd love to talk to him, but have not been able to reach you. Just what is the mindset here? Are you just wanting to get back home? His mother does live in California. Now, that's one thing, and obviously his father's passed. I'm not gonna to get on anybody for if they want to go back home. I never left home. I always stayed here, had the opportunity to go other places, but I get it. But it's just I can't wait to hear everything that's involved in the story, the 30 on 30 story behind the scenes after this is over with. Yep. And I do give Coach Musselman credit. There are a lot of people who can run out there and done interviews and start talking and fire this up a little bit more. He's been nothing but recruiting. You got a commitment from a 6'10" kid last Friday, and here we go with this. Let's see how that plays out.
Yeah. Hey, let's bring in Vince Ferrara, sports animal up in Knoxville, covers the Tennessee Volunteers up on Rocky Top. And Vince, we're talking about with Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, and Dave Tompkins over in the low country of South Carolina. He's part of our Savant Fridays, and a Birmingham native, Alabama fan from birth, West Point graduate, and a Stanford MBA. So it's fun to kind of mesh all this in here together. But Vince, hopefully we'll get you back here. But this is I'm with Dave. Southern Cal, it ain't what it used to be. I mean, Southern Cal, it's a private school. We don't know what they pay coaches and all, but I would, his mother's there, and I totally understand that part of it. But I would.
If it was UCLA, I don't think anybody would have any questions. Because of the proud tradition of that school and program and all that. It's just USC is not the place.
Yeah.
They willingly let Enfield go to SMU. They didn't fight to keep him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they don't. Vince Ferrara, man, I tell you what, Zach Edey, there's going to be people talking about that guy for a long time. Listening and watching the Tennessee-Purdue game this past Sunday, he did. He had a halo around him. He was untouchable, but he had a ton of points. Dalton Knecht had, I think, is the second most points. Dale Ellis would have to be the only guy. Wasn't Dale Ellis out of Griffin, Georgia? Former Tennessee player, is the all-time single points, 802 in the season, and I think Dalton Knecht ended up with 780, if I'm not mistaken.
Allen
but
Houston,
Tennessee's got a pretty damn good program. Allen Houston, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, Allen Houston, the most, for a single season. But Dalton Knecht set the Tennessee points scored in an NCAA tournament game with 37, topping Ernie Grunfeld, who had 36.
Yeah,
so.
And he's having some, you there? Okay, so he had 37 points. Okay, well, and Vince, jump in when you can, because I know you're having some tech issues, but 37 points in a game. What was?
Yeah, sorry, still
Santiago,
struggling with the internet. I don't know why I'm in the same spot.
Yeah, but let's talk about the way that game.
Yeah, sorry,
played out.
Wi-Fi. I'm in the same spot I normally am.
Okay. But with Tennessee basketball, we're talking about the programs, and Dave talked about it, and Dudley. Tennessee's got it's a great basketball program. We're talking about what's going on in Auburn and Alabama and Arkansas, their situation, Florida, Tennessee basketball. And now you look at Kentucky, they haven't responded to everybody else in the SEC ramping up their commitment to basketball. That's how I see it. Would you agree? Because nobody beats Kentucky more in basketball in America than the Tennessee Volunteers. Dave, are you there? Or Vince?
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead, jump in, Dave.
It sounded like shades of John Ward there, and then back in the days of the Ernie and Bernie show, and they had a third guy, I think, by the name of Mike Jackson, who was also very good back then.
And I mean, and I wish Vince could. He's having a problem, but Dave, along that line, you think about it. Santiago Vescovi, he had the flu in those games, and that hurt him. And when Dalton Knecht goes off for 35 to 40 points, Tennessee usually doesn't win.
I thought that was just a very, very exciting game, and I agree with you on the shroud around Zach Edey, and if you penetrated the shroud, it's an automatic foul, and he didn't. He had no fouls, but I'm proud of Rick Barnes for really coaching well in that game, and I do think I've changed my mind on him. I think he's going to get him in the Final Four. I think there's nothing but upside for Tennessee basketball. I hope the same will, restore its tradition in women's basketball. But I think that right now the men's, I think it's nothing but upside. And I sure wanted to get them into the Final Four this year. But they will get there real soon, I believe.
I did too.
I'm sitting there in Pennsylvania Sunday watching that game with the new Grant son, who, by the way, has more analysis than I'm sure any young baby on NCAA basketball. Because I held him a lot this week with March Madness games on. But I would say, I went back and watched it overall, and I know it's an unpopular thing to say, but I think most, not all, but most of the fouls on Zach were really fouls. I mean, that's what happens when you get 3 or 4 guys down there. Somebody's going to bump him. Now, the fact that he didn't get foul calls is, leads to the credence that the referees are trying to keep stars in the game and all that. But it was a wonderful game to watch if you had no rooting interest in it. The young Arthur, the A-Train Dawson now fully understands defense, offense, all that. And amazingly, it puts him sleep.
Right. So, yeah. Well, I mean,
and give Matt Painter credit. His Achilles heel has always been athletic guard play, and they don't have the most athletic guards in college basketball by any stretch. But they're a lot more athletic now, and they can hurt you. And credit to Matt Painter for that.
Their point guard was born in Arkansas. Braden Smith was actually born in Arkansas. His parents played at Arkansas Tech, and then they moved to Indiana, and the rest is history. So, there's an Arkansas connection in the Final Four this year, even if there's no Razorbacks.
Yeah, and Matt Painter, if you're not, maybe if you're drinking a lot, he looks like Gary Busey. Interesting guy.
He does.
He's just, hopefully he doesn't ride around without a motorcycle helmet.
Or what was Gary Busey's role in the firm in Memphis? He was the private eye, and Holly Hunter was his secretary / lover.
Yes, and by the way, if Vince Ferrara jump back in here, if you're in here, Dave, you did remind us the other day too. Samuel L. Jackson's cameo role in Goodfellas. He was Skeets, the driver. Who runs the truck, and of course, like most everybody else in Goodfellas, he got whacked.
He was the first one that got whacked. Yeah. And Samuel's from Chattanooga. Yeah,
he sure is.
He's a Chattanooga boy.
He absolutely is. He did. He was a proud native son of Tennessee. Look, Vince, you got the coolest job. Join us now and talk, because we didn't wait. I want you to get. I know you had some internet problems, but that Tennessee game, Tennessee's program is so close to the Final Four, and no one knew about Dalton Connect last year. Who's on the radar? What's going on up there?
Well, Dalton Connect was the best transfer in the country, and obviously he was amazing as a consensus All-American. And unfortunately, in this game for Tennessee, they didn't have enough offensive help around him, and that was one of the things that was a question mark about them. There was times where he didn't have to go off for them to win if everybody else was really contributing. And I think a lot of other guys contributed. They just didn't get enough offense from other guys. And the biggest part, in Buck on the chat mentioned it, is they didn't have enough low guy to throw it down to in the low block, and that has been Jonas Adu. But Adu could not defend Edey. He couldn't keep him off the low block, and they couldn't play him because he was so mismatched. They went to J.P. Estrella, who's their number 3 big, ahead of Jonas Adu, and then Awaka, their backup, who's tougher and more physical, not as advanced offensively. He did the best job, but he couldn't stay out of foul trouble against Edey. So it was a real struggle for them. And without Adu bringing the offense, that opens up so much for them. It opens things up even more for Connect, for all their other players on offense when they can score inside and outside. Another thing they didn't do is they didn't go after Edey and drive to the basket and force those calls on the officials. They were pulling up with floaters and 10-footers, and they never went to his body like you got to do for those big guys and force the issue. And then Tennessee also couldn't produce guards in front of them. And so they had numerous things that didn't go against them, but Connect was heroic. It was an unbelievable season, winning the regular season. And look, getting to be in the locker room to do a bunch of interviews is always cool, but it is tough after a loss like that, with the finality of seasons and careers and missed opportunity that smacks them in the face. Man, it is hard on those guys. I mean, they are human beings. They are young guys. Yeah. They're guys with friendships, and it's just hitting them that it is over for that group in that ride. And they expected to win, which is another reason why it hit them hard. It's tough, man, to put a microphone in front of somebody in a locker room after they've had a devastating loss like that. So I give those guys props for doing it like they did. But fun team to cover, and an unbelievable year.
I agree. Dudley, jump in here in this conversation. That is always, people wonder why everybody's so quiet. Well, God bless. You got testosterone. Your juices are flowing. You're not out there screwing around. You're out there to win. And I heard Dalton Connect on the Vol Network saying, "I just appreciate the Tennessee family for accepting me for the 1 year I'm here." And I think he'll always be able to walk down the Cumberland Strip and go get a death dog at the Pilot gas station on the house. I mean, he's all, which is a fun thing to do when you're in Knoxville. But Dudley, jump in.
I think you have a situation where, whatever sport, but especially basketball, because, it ends so abruptly. You have to go in that locker room, do the interviews. They don't want to do the interviews, but they try to do, what they need to do and try to voice the emotions. One of the things that I've always found the hardest thing to do over this 43-year career that I've had is asking the right questions and asking it the right way to somebody whose life to them has just been destroyed. You've got to be very empathetic. You've got to understand what the person's going through. Yet at the same time, you need to know, why did you take that dribble over there? Why did you take that three-point shot instead of, as Vince was saying, drive into the lane and at least try to get him into foul trouble? It's one of the things that you have to do that because the fans deserve to know and aren't going to get to have that opportunity to hear other than what two players they bring to the deal. But it is a tough thing for the athletes. It's a tough thing for the media. Certainly more. I'm not trying to compare what we go through to them, but it's just the finality of things in March Madness, and especially if you've had a phenomenal year and then you just can't throw it in the ocean, and that happened to a lot of teams in this tournament.
I really like Buck Wade's point about Burns and Edey. To borrow a page out of Lute Olson's playbook back when Stanford was good in basketball, my Stanford team back in the 90s, Lute Olson, we beat everybody in the Pac-10 back then except Arizona. And Lute Olson said, my strategy is very simple. I'm going to let Mike Montgomery's teams do what they do, with one exception. They have to do it 3 feet further from the basket from where they're comfortable doing it. I think that's the strategy you apply deploy against Edey. And Burns is strong enough. Just push him out 2 or 3 feet and make him operate from there. It's very frustrating. You just get frustrated. You start rushing shots. Yeah. And if they can do that, and to Buck's point, if the NC State's guards can play well, they got a real legitimate chance to pull off the upset.
I don't think there's anybody that's more fun and entertaining to watch in this tournament than Burns. He's just having a ball out there. He's just living his best life. It's the noted basketball observer RG3, former football quarterback, made a good point the other day that he really would like to see, no early foul calls. Don't give 3 foul calls on Burns early on. I'm with that. If it's legitimate foul calls, you got to do it. But I just love to watch him, and the Duke fans who were getting on him for being overweight, and he was used to be 80 more pounds overweight. The kid's getting himself in shape. But he's there at the end of the line. They're yelling at him. He's had 30 whatever, and he's looking at him. And he's going, "You're going home. Say whatever you want to. You're going home."
Vince, you wanted to add
Charles
something
Barkley,
about,
but 5 inches taller. He's Big Baby before Big Baby became bad boy screw up baby.
Yeah, and Vince, I think his personality is a lot like, I call him a taller version of Charles Barkley. And Barkley was listed at 270. I was in school there. He weighed about 320, 330, depending on if he'd gone home to his grandmother's house for the weekend to eat. But let's talk. I want to hear more about Dalton Knecht, because he's a special player, and I think he'll have a hell of an NBA career.
Yeah, and I do want to circle back to what you guys were talking about there with DJ Burns and the matchup with NC State. I'll do that. Do want to mention with Dalton Knecht. Rick Barnes talked about how when Knecht was talking to him about going to Tennessee, that he didn't really ask about the NIL. This was a basketball decision for him to go to the University of Tennessee.
For him.
He wanted to be coached up hard. He wanted to get better defensively, become a better all-around player. And then he knew that Rick Barnes had coached his favorite player growing up in Kevin Durant. And then when he hit the portal, he said he had like 500 calls and 1,000 text messages, something like that. That's how coveted he was, just based on what he did at Northern Colorado when many of the common fans had never even heard of him. But
How refreshing.
Yes. You've made our day.
Yeah. And so then he also had a connection with the assistant coach, Rod Clark, who comes on our show each week. Rod Clark knew about his JUCO. He had been a JUCO player. So that connected with Dalton Connect, no pun intended, that he actually knew something about him instead of just coming at him with generic stuff. Well, do you know who we are and all that kind of stuff? He actually connected with him. And so, yeah, that should be a great example to people in the portal on how to use it. Do it for basketball reasons, not for money reasons. And this now he's become a projected lottery pick. He SEC Player of the Year, all the accolades. The team got to an Elite Eight. All this because he made a decision based on personal development as a player, not about the NIL. Doesn't mean he didn't do any NIL. He just wasn't driven to make his decision of where to go based on the NIL. So I think that's unbelievable. And think about it from Tennessee's perspective. How powerful is that for them when they're looking at players in the portal? When you show that you can get a kid to make a decision not about the NIL, and it works out so beautifully for him, and they developed him in all ways, defense, offense, overall, and he can be that in the NBA. I mean, that is something that no one else is going to be able to compare to, that using that in recruiting as a prime example.
Yeah, well, I saw somebody just looking the other day to have a bad day that talked about how the transfer portal is just a place where players who have been fired from other situations go and find a new team. I think that's an overly simplistic take on that. There are a lot of guys out there, such as Dalton Connect, who are at a place. They've given that place, a lot of success, and now they want to go play on the biggest stage. Nobody is giving Dalton Connect, heat for going and putting himself in this position, and I'm glad it worked out for him. But there's so many things that are good about the transfer portal, but they get overshadowed by the things that the dark side of it has been said. Those who are going to look for money, going to look for better situations. It didn't work here at Arkansas this year because they took some players that weren't necessarily team-oriented guys. They could score. Weren't team-oriented guys. It just didn't work out. And with Coach, if he had one foot out the door, that wasn't working, either. It is interesting to me. Watch the Elite Eight, this weekend. Arkansas had beaten Purdue and Arkansas had beaten Duke. And Purdue was in an exhibition game, but it was with 19,000 people in the arena and both of their playing. But they beat both of those and then didn't have a winning record at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Well, I think great point. I think Dalton Connect is a great case study for all the kids to look at and say, this is how it can work out for you. In football, Jalen Hurts, and not only him going from Alabama to Oklahoma, but then going on to the Eagles and what he's done with his career there. I mean, if you do it the right way, it's your friend. Just have more of a long, the mentors around the kids, just mentor them and give them more of a long-term view.
And Dudley, you mentioned the team. I'm sorry, real quick. You mentioned the team-oriented. He told Rick Barnes he wanted to be coached hard. It wasn't just to get better or to the exposure. I mean, those were part of the equation. He said he wanted to be coached hard. Rick Barnes continued. I mean, they stayed on him like crazy, but Connect didn't take it personally. He embraced it. And man, at the post-game press conference, all of those guys hugged Rick Barnes and told them that they loved him. And that just shows you, man, you can get coached hard, but still connect and get better. But you have to have that willingness to be coached hard and get the highest level of coaching. That's sometimes why you move up, is for the level of coaching that he got at Tennessee.
I only see one thing wrong. I only see one thing wrong with Dalton Connect. It is the fact that he developed so well and had such a great year. There's no freak with the Boston Celtics draft unless they make something.
Yeah.
He's a Boston Celtic to me.
Yeah. Well, this is the interesting thing about it. You look at businesses and businesses that I've been in, there are some firms that pay up front and some firms that don't. Well, Dalton Connect, I don't know what NIL he got. I don't know if he got a lifetime supply of death dogs at the Pilot gas station. I don't know what he got, but I'll say this. That young man and the Tennessee faithful, and I know a lot of Tennessee fans. I sleep with one every night. Bottom line, you talk about NIL, and I know the state of Tennessee. I live in Tennessee. Dalton Connect has the respect, the love, the admiration of the Tennessee fan base. Wherever he is in Tennessee, wherever he is, where there's orange and white checkered overalls, and you can get these badass checkered coverall shirts at Hewlett and Dunn made by Acres Down South. They're really cool. You hadn't seen these, Vince? I got to send you one of these shirts. It's what are you at? A large, XL? What are you?
Keep going, but no,
come on,
we'll figure that out later.
Come on, stretch. But look, I got to get you one of these shirts.
Hey, me and Ozempic are working on some new
cover.
sizes. Me and Ozempic are working on some new sizes.
Yeah. but Connect, he's got NIL because the tennis, when he goes out and whatever, he'll be in the NBA for a while, but he'll want to start a business one day when he gets out of the NBA. And the Tennessee people are always going to respect that. Dave, you know that. Look, West Point doesn't offer NIL. If you go to West Point and you graduate from that place or VMI or the Citadel and you graduate from there, you are connected with a group of people like no one can even imagine for the rest of your life. And Dudley, you know the power. Man, try to do business in the state of Arkansas as an outsider if you don't have connections within the state of Arkansas. If you're a student athlete and you leave the state of Arkansas and it doesn't work out, you're just you might as well be, what was that old TV show, The Invisible Man? That story about Dalton Connect and Vince Ferrara, we've heard a lot of good ones. That's the most refreshing story, and damn, that story needs to get out there. That's what I love about Dudley and Dave and you, Vince, is you're telling stories that are not being told. I hadn't heard it anywhere else. That Dudley's right. That's refreshing. It makes our day, and it makes for one of the best shows I've done in a while.
Those are not the Yukon Huskies barking in the background. That's Smokey, the blue tick hound.
Yeah, actually, that's over here. It's three dogs, and I don't know whether there was a comment I made that they didn't like or the mailman showed up, but all three of them were really into it. They got music there all of a sudden. So I apologize for that, but they often appear on radio shows.
Hey, I love dogs. Vince, talk this Tennessee now. You got to move on past it. When we were talking about Kelly Harper is out as the women's coach, and Philip Marshall wrote a great piece in Auburn Undercover. She started her career as an assistant under Joe Champy, and Philip said he's a big Pat Summitt fan. I mean, who can't admire 8 national championships? When she was winning, it was Auburn, and you had Georgia with Andy Landers and Van Chancellor at Ole Miss. That was about it. And now you got South Carolina, you got LSU ahead of Tennessee right now. It just goes to show you how far and wide the shadow of a legend can be cast. Alabama, they're not going to fall off the face of the earth this year, but they may lose a couple of games, 2 or 3 games with a learning curve. But Tennessee's commitment to winning is always going to be there. And I don't know. You just look at it, the loss, Rick Barnes, I'm sure they'll give him a hard time. But what would you rather have? Every now and then have a really good year, or every year be in the hunt for the championship? That's what Tennessee's got.
Yeah, Danny White has established that he expects all his teams to compete for championships. I mean, he even put it out there publicly. Here's what we're looking for. This level of SEC success, this level of national championship success. And guess what? Most of the programs on campus are doing that or trending towards it. And now they're at the top of the Learfield Cup in the SEC, the Directors Cup, where they were last when he got there.
Yeah,
and so it's an expectation, and the fact that all these brands in women's college basketball, when the sport is as popular as it's ever been, and the ratings are just through the roof, almost 100% better year to year, and most watched Sweet 16s and Elite Eights, all that, and you put all those brands out there that are drawing these viewers, and Tennessee's logo isn't among them. That's a problem. And even schools that aren't at the top of the SEC now that were recently, like Mississippi State under Vic Schaefer. They were in there in championship games too.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, Tennessee, it's trying to compete or live up to the expectations of Pat Summitt was unrealistic. But they're far enough away from it that you can't just not go to the Final Four anymore or not get past the Sweet 16. So
Yeah.
There's a high level of expectations, but not that unrealistic to where they can't have more than what they've had. So I didn't know if he'd do this move this year, but I did feel like eventually this move was going to come, that they needed to go to the next level with different leadership.
Well,
Yeah,
obviously, Coach Harper was a great player. Has been a great coach. I mean, good to great coach. But I understand the standard, as Mitch was saying. We recently had a talk with Mike Neighbors, who's the women's basketball coach here at Arkansas. He's only been to the tournament 2 out of 7 years. They've been to the postseason the last 6 years, and likes to throw out that only 3 teams have done that. But it's all about getting the NCAA. And had a talk with him in a press conference, and he was talking about, I am so glad that the women's basketball game is getting the attention, but it also, then that criticism is going to come with it, responsibility, advancement, all those things are going to come with it. So I think most get that. You could love that that I was in the airport watching the LSU Iowa game on my phone Monday night. And the Celtics were playing, the Cardinals were playing, but I was watching women's basketball. But if you do, if you get all that attention, then you've got to have the same criticism that the men get. And I don't blame, don't want anybody to get fired, but I don't blame Tennessee at all, because they were once the gold standard, and they want to get back to at least being in the talk again.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. Look, we've run out of time, but Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net. Dave Tompkins, man, be up back on Friday with us, Savant Friday. Vince Ferrara, the sports animal up in Knoxville. Great conversation. Check out all of our sponsors on sidelines.live website. Do yourself a favor. Go out and help somebody out. Good words, good deeds, not just good intentions, but follow through is the most important thing in life. Vince, story of the day about Dalton Connect. This guy is NIL, what it should be. And just like Dave will tell you, and Dudley knows this, loyalty. You get what that's a lot better than just $100,000 short term that's blown in one weekend. That loyalty of Dalton Connect to the Tennessee fan base will last until he breathes his last breath and beyond. Hey, for Brandon Norton, our executive producer, great show. What, Dudley, you had one comment?
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shopp's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal, and the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.